My audio and video, everything clear?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Okay, good, very good. So today we are going to continue our discussion on data assimilation. In the last two lectures, we discussed about the methods of objective analysis, and we discussed that there are many methods for interpolating the observations which are scattered in space onto the regular grid point of the model. Okay. The important among them were, of course, the successive correction method, the Cressman's technique, the Barnes scheme, and also the multiple optimum interpolation scheme. All right. And today we are going to discuss slightly more advanced techniques which are used now currently in the models, which are known as variational assimilation schemes. Okay. So now, as you have by now have a good idea of what the data assimilation is. For example, let me first of all also start the laser pointer. Okay. In this diagram, say this is the x-axis and this is the time axis. Okay. And you have got data. These are the stars which are indicating the observation points, observations. Okay. So some observations are available at this location. Some observations are available at that location. These stars are the observations. Okay. And these are the observations available in time. Okay. So basically, this blue line represents the observations. Okay. The variation of observations spatially as well as temporally. Okay. Now, as you know, for every objective analysis scheme or even for data assimilation, we always use a first guess, which is the background fill, which is called the background fill obtained from the last 6-hour forecast of the model. Okay. So in that sense, in data assimilation, now the two most important things are, number one, your assimilation scheme. Okay. And number two is the model itself, because the two go side by side concurrently. If you do not have the model, you cannot get the first guess or the background fill for the next cycle of assimilation or analysis, right? So you have to have a good model and you have to have a good analysis scheme. Okay, analysis scheme or objective analysis scheme or assimilation scheme, whatever. Okay, so this is the observation, blue line, and this is the, say, green line is your background fill, old forecast, and forecast from the past 6 hours. Okay. Now, obviously, your green line and the blue line are not coinciding with each other, right? They're not coinciding with each other because the forecasts are not perfect. So once the new observations have come, you treat the observation or you consider the observations to be the truth, equivalent to the truth or closest to the truth. So our aim is to bring this green line close to the blue line, right? Bring the green line, which is the first guess of the background fill, close to the blue line, which is the observation or so-called the truth. Okay. And the challenge of the data assimilation scheme or the analysis scheme is to bring as these two lines as close as possible. So this red line is, let us say, the analysis produced by your assimilation system or the objective analysis technique. Let's say this is the red line, which is the analysis produced by the assimilation scheme, or after, say, ingesting all the observations and doing all the quality control, okay, and doing all the interpolation, finally you could get this red line, which is your analysis. Now you see that even then the red line is not coinciding exactly with the blue line, right? Why so? And you notice two important things here in this diagram. See, this red line is closest to the blue line in this part and in this part, right? But in this part, it is away from the blue line, right? Why it is like that is because wherever there are observations, like you have got a set of observations in this location, in this area, right? And you have got a set of observations also available in that area. So wherever there are observations available, your red line is closest to the blue line, like on the lands. Right? We have got observatories of the lands, over the lands. So the analysis over the lands will be close to the observation. But over the ocean, where there are scarcity of observations, there your red line will be close to the green line. Because there is no observations, so your analysis remains the same as the first case. Okay, so that's why we say that now when there is no observation or the ocean or any remote places or the mountains, etc., there your initial condition or analysis produced by the simulation system is same as that of the first case, or it just reproduces the first case. Whereas when there are observations, wherever there are observations, the first case will be closest to the observations. So this is what is the basic fundamental philosophy of the data assimilation system. All right. Is that clear? Are you able to hear me?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Good. Very good. Very good. I will keep on checking to ensure that I'm not disconnected without my knowledge. So there are different methods of data assimilation. All right. Of course, now we have already talked about the introduction. Now, there are various ways of assimilation, as I said. One is called sequential, intermittent, or continuous assimilation. Okay, sequential, intermittent, or continuous assimilation. The next is three-dimensional variational assimilation, also known in the short form as 3D VAR. Okay, three-dimensional variational assimilation. Then, of course, four-dimensional variational assimilation, 4D VAR. Okay. Then we have ensemble-based assimilation. People are nowadays, using ensemble-based assimilation. More and more computing power you have, more and more theoretical knowledge is improved. You keep on improving your assimilation system. So we are using ensemble-based assimilation system nowadays. And further complications or further improved versions are so-called EMKF, the Kalman filtering, ensemble Kalman filtering, ETKF, ensemble transformed Kalman filtering assimilation systems, and so on. Okay, so these are different methods of assimilations, okay, data assimilations used nowadays in the model. But 3D VAR is quite popular and still very common scheme used at many places because it does the job. It produces a reasonably good analysis, and it does not require very high computing time. Of course, it requires larger computing time than compared to your Pressman technique or successive correction method, or even your optimum interpolation method that we discussed yesterday. But still, it can be done with a reasonably computed time. If you have a reasonably good workstation or a server, right? It doesn't require a supercomputing machine for that. Obviously, for other things like ensemble-based data assimilation system, you need more powerful computers. And of course, those things are very, very important when you're doing the operational forecasting. That means you are time bound to give a forecast at the right time. Suppose at 03 UTC every day. When all the public broadcasting systems, radio, television, etc., everybody wants your forecast. So you are constrained by the time. But for research purpose, you don't have a time boundation. You can get the result even tomorrow. It doesn't matter. If computer runs all day for making the simulation or analysis, it doesn't matter. No, because you are not time bound to give your output to anybody, right? It is for your own research. So for that purpose, you can still run all these schemes also on your PC or your workstation or even server, right? Because their time limitation is not there. And at the end, we shall just try to discuss briefly about the radar data simulation. Right, all these topics I hope to complete within 2 or 3 lectures maximum. Okay, all these topics shall try to complete into the lectures. Okay, so one by one now. The data simulation as an introduction, of course now we have discussed and you also by now know about it. It is a process through which observations are blended with model forecast fields, leading to the generation of initial conditions for numerical model integration, right? Observation data are not analyzed directly to generate the initial state, but to make corrections to a forecast assumed to be good field. Now, yesterday we discussed that how we try to correct the first guess. The first guess is a forecast field from the past 6 hours, right? Minimize the error. In this way, a good forecast leads to a good analysis, and also a bad forecast may lead to a bad analysis until the tendency would be reverted under the influence of considerable observations, right? Suppose your model is not good and your 6-hour forecast is not correct. So, because the two things go together, right, in the data assimilation, the model forecast as well as the observations go together. So, if your forecast is not good, then also your analysis will not be good. If you have a bad observation somehow, no, it's just somehow sneaked in to the system even after your complex quality control, because you know that you will do all kinds of quality checks and observations, right? And despite all the checks of the quality control, even suppose some data gets into your system, so that will be bad data, right? And a bad data will obviously produce a bad analysis, right? And we have discussed about how bad data can enter earlier during the data processing stage. In the beginning, if you recall, we have discussed how a bad data can enter, right? Because everything is automatized nowadays. We can't manually intervene at every stage. Everything is automatic. Now, after making all the research, testing, etc., once we are confident that our system is working okay, then we just make it automatic, right? And it is not possible to check at every time stage that how is your system doing. Of course, people will check it now after suppose every 12 hours or every 24 hours how the output is, and if they have any doubt, any suspicion about the solution, then they go back and try to check what happened, what went wrong, right? And then they try to analyze if there was any bad data, and how the bad data could enter, why it was not filtered out. Those things are checked, of course. Now, the people who are assigned jobs for that in the data assimilation group, and I probably had mentioned you that some time back that in any numerical weather prediction center, data assimilation group is supposed to be the strongest group. They got the largest manpower generally. Lots of jobs have to be done in data assimilation section or data assimilation division, right? Modeling group is also strong, of course, but generally models do not change every day, right? Do the models change every day? Yes or no?
No, sir.
No, yeah. Models do not change every day, right? No. People do research for 6 months, 1 hour, 1 year, and after all the research is done and tested by individual people, then there is a group assigned for the model, implementation or model upgradation group, and which will try to see that whatever development has been done in the last 6 months or 1 year by the group of the people, they are all retested once again, and if they found that yes, there is improvement, then only it is implemented. And the next version of the model is declared. Like you must have heard that WRF version 4.0, 4.1, 4.2, right? Yeah, you may be knowing about that. right? Starting from WRF version 1.0, right? So presently, I think WRF version 4.2 is going on. And to go from version 1 to 4.2, you know how many years has taken? Any idea? Any idea?
No, sir.
No idea. Right. Yeah. I remember the first version, WRF version 1 was probably released sometime back in 2002, approximately, or 3, 1, 2 or 3. And now 2020 is going on, 18 years ago, right? 18 years ago. So to come from WRF version 1 to version 4.2, it has taken almost 18 years, or let us say 20 years, right? So model does not change so rapidly. When people keep on working and improving it, somebody will introduce new parameterization scheme, somebody will try to improve the dynamics, some numerical techniques or integration schemes, etc., etc. But it takes time for improvement, right? Whereas observation changes every hourly, every 3 hourly, every 6 hourly, daily, isn't it? Observations will change every hourly, every 3 hourly, right? So if a bad observation has entered your system at some point of time, anyway, your cycle will continue. Your simulation system will continue every 6 hourly, depending upon what your cycling time. And since after 6 hours, you will get a new observation, new set of observations, which may have a good set of observations. After 12 hours, you have another set of observations, which may be good, further better, and like that. So till your good observations entered into the system, your analysis will remain bad and it will slowly keep improving, right? So it will lead to a bad analysis until the tendency would be reverted under the influence of considerable observations or good observations. Okay. Now, what are the steps in a simulation system? The steps are already actually familiar to you. The step 1 is the background field, which is the short range forecast, as it contains information from the model forecast based on prior observations. The background field is also called the first guess, that you already know it, right? Step number 2 is the observations over a time period called a time window, okay, or also called the cutoff time, are used for analysis. Now, what is this cutoff time, observation window? Say, for example, you are making a analysis at 00 UTC, right? Now, what is 00 UTC in terms of IST?
5:30 a.m.
Yes, 5:30 in the morning, right? 5:30 in the morning. So you are assuming that the analysis at 5:30 uses all the observations collected at 5:30 a.m. in the morning, right? 00 UTC. But actually, it is not so. Why? Because all the observations which are collected at 5:30 in the morning cannot reach at the operational centers, right? Because it has reached from all over the world, right? Global data assimilation system. It is a global data assimilation system, right? Of course, we have the regional data assimilation system also, but observations collected all over the country, even within one country, also cannot reach now just at that time. Like observations collected at Kolkata, Chennai, Guwahati, and all over India at 5:30 cannot reach NCMRWF at 5:30 or IMD at 5:30. It takes time, right? And if you are trying to utilize the observations all over the world, obviously it will take more time, right? So we have to keep a time margin, And generally we give a time margin of plus minus 3 hours, right? Because it's not just a set of observations at a given time, but all the observations, let us say, which were collected at 21 UTC. Now, what is 21 UTC in terms of Indian time? 21 UTC in terms of Indian time is
2:30
say,
a.m.
yes, exactly, 2:30 a.m. right? That is night time.
Yes.
So there are many observations which are collected hourly, 3-hourly, 6-hourly, and so on. So all the observations which are collected, let us say, in a time window of plus minus 3 hours. Let's say cutoff time plus minus 3 hours. So minus 3 hours, that means 2:30 in the early morning, that means night time. Plus 3 hours, that means 5:30 plus 3 hours means 8:30 in the morning, isn't it? So that means all the observations which are collected between 2:30 at night to 8:30 in the morning are considered to be representative of 00 UTC, 5:30 in the morning, plus minus the hour window. And it is up to you. Now, what do you want to set your cutoff time window, right? I mean, generally, practically, we all know that it is not possible to get all the data immediately. It takes time. Sometimes mini data even does not reach in 6 hours. And then obviously, we call so-called we miss the bus. I mean, that data which arrived too late, they will miss the bus. And so they will not be utilized for the real-time assimilation system, but they will put into the data bank. They will be put into the data bank because it will be used later on for constructing your reanalysis now, like ERA, right? ERA, and NCEP and CAR reanalysis system. Now, NCEP has also started producing the analysis of the SAARC region, South Asian region. So all those data which arrives late beyond the cutoff time, they will miss the bus. They will be put into the data bank, but your cycle will go on. You cannot wait because you have to give your forecast. Say at 8:30 in the morning to all the user agencies, right? So we have a cutoff time, cutoff window, plus minus 3 hours, let us say. And all the observations which were collected within that time window are then quality controlled, processed, analyzed, and assimilated into the model. Okay, so this is the time period called a cutoff time or time window are used in the analysis. Clear? Is it okay?
Yes, sir.
Yes.
Yes, sir.
Okay, good. Yeah, keep answering, but I know you are corrected. So the characteristics of observations may vary distinctly and so are to be treated differently, right? Some of them may vary from different instruments due to different locations. Some of them may be pre-processed, such as hourly, averaged winds from wind profilers, etc. Some of them may be available under certain weather conditions only, like satellite radiuses are not available under cloudy conditions, but the cloud motion vectors are available only during the cloudy conditions, right? So you are familiar with these things, right? I've got all kinds of observations available from all over the world, which uses different types of instruments. And each manufacturer of the instrument will have its own instrumental error, right? Like in India, we used, I mean, when IMD manufactures its own radiosonde, you might be knowing that. Now, IMD has a manufacturing unit of the radiosonde. But there are many countries which do not have the company factory for manufacturing the radiosonde. So they import. And one of the most popular, widely used all over the world is the Vaisala company's radiosonde made in Finland. Okay, and actually Vaisala is a very famous company for manufacturing different kinds of weather instruments. And there are many nowadays. I mean, in the old days, there used to be monopoly for that company, only one company. But nowadays, there are plenty of them. Right? So, different company will have its own manufacturing error. India IMD will have its own manufacturing error. I might have told you that for many years, Indian radiosonde data was not accepted by global analysis systems like ECMWF and ZIP. They used to reject the Indian radiosonde data because they used to always complain that there is a problem in your data, and in India we were not accepting that. You cannot say that our data has a problem. Right? Later on, for several years, it took for us to realize and admit that there was a problem. Actually, there was not a full-fledged problem. There was only a partial problem. I probably have discussed about this earlier. Did I discuss about this earlier?
Yes, sir.
Yes or no?
Yes.
Yeah, I think I mentioned in the past. So what was happening was that now our mass data used to be having some problem, but wind data was okay. Right? The Indian reduction wind used to be okay, but mass with geopotential height used to have a problem. And that problem was happening because there was no GPS system. So it was tracked through some other methods like radio theodolite, etc. etc. And earlier days, when there was no GPS, then it was tried only through the radio theodolite. Even I used to do that long, long ago when I was working at the radio station. So when we do manually, then obviously errors can come. And so there was a problem in the assigning the height of the balloon, where it is, because it is not visible to your eye, right? And you have to do all through your graphical techniques and electronic methods, etc. etc. But nowadays GPS are there, so we know exactly where the location of the balloon is. So that problem is now sorted out. And now, of course, now all the ECMWF people and Z people, they use our data also, right? But they used to flag down our mass data and use only the wind data earlier, right? So different kinds of instrumentation problems and different periodic data, like some data is hourly, some data is 3 hourly, right? And most interestingly, some data is available only when there is a cloud, and some data is available when there is no cloud, like radiance, satellite radiance are not available under cloud conditions. When there is a cloud, then radiances are not available. But cloud motion vectors now, that you will be knowing, CMVs, they are available only when there is a cloud, because you are basically tracking the cloud through satellite to compute the wind vectors. So because of all these different types of observations characteristics, we have to treat them differently. The raw data are to be corrected for known biases, and grossly wrong values are to be excluded. Observation increments, which are the differences between the observation and the forecast value, are calculated at each of the observation location, not at the model grid point. Yesterday we talked about that, right? The observational error, the forecast error, the analysis error, right? In the optimum interpolation technique, right? So and they're called the observation increments, right? So observation increments, which are differences between the observation and the forecast value, are calculated at each of the observation locations, right? We interpolate the first guess from the model grid onto the observation location, right? And after computing the observational increments, we again interpolate back to the model grid point. Quality control checks are performed on observations increments and not on observations directly. This would help identify improbable anomalies considering the probable variations in space and time. Some complex checks are also implemented regarding the occurrence of common errors in data, right? So you are trying to perform the checks on the anomaly, not directly on the observations. Anomaly, that means what is the tendency? Like you don't expect that there will be a 10-degree difference in temperature, change in temperature in a short time period like 1 hour or 3 hours, right? Do you think that the temperature will drop down by 10 degrees in the next 1 hour? You don't think. Do you think? Unless there is something very drastic, right? Suppose if there is a severe thunderstorm suddenly, with a chill downdraft coming up, then of course your temperature can drop down quite rapidly. But otherwise, normally you don't expect that the temperature will drop down sharply, so rapidly, right? But that is when you know that what is happening around you, right? Suppose weather is changing around you, then you know that something is happening. But you get the observations from all over the world, and what is happening where you don't know, right? So the anomalies, and then of course, then you always based on your theory, your model, your computer, and all that, right? So you try to check the anomaly, right? Not the observation directly, right? This step is the core of data estimation process, wherein all observations increments related to different types of observations are determined considering both the value of observations and the first guess. This currently adopted objective analysis procedure we call the 3D VAR, the three-dimensional variational system or scheme, which is a replacement of the previously used optimum interpolation procedure. We discussed yesterday this optimum interpolation, right? And you know that how many complex statistical equations were there. The next step is to determine the analysis increments, that is the corrections that are to be affected at each of the model grid point, right? Analysis increment, that also we talked about yesterday. It is important to differentiate these with the observations increment. There are two different things. Observation increment is different from the analysis increment, that now we have to know, which are the corrections identified at each of the observational locations. That means observational increments are the corrections at the observational locations. Okay. Because you are trying to interpolate your forecast field, background field, or first guess from model grid to the observation location, and then try to make the calculate the observation increment. Whereas analysis increment is at the analysis point of the model. These analysis increments are produced considering all of the observations through the objective analysis 3D VAR method. Okay. Since the model forecasts are supposed to be good, these are considered as corrections to the first guess. Right? Corrections to the first guess. That means your analysis increments are basically corrections to the first guess. This step is to determine the final analysis that would serve as the initial condition for the model's next forecast cycle. So after you have made the corrections in your first guess or analysis, calculate the analysis increments, then you add that to the first guess for each model grid point, and then you get the new analysis or initial condition to run the model for your next forecast cycle. Okay. So that was the analysis scheme. And as I said, for any data estimation system, you have got two important parts. One is the analysis system or the forecast model. Because forecast model is crucial since it gives you the first guess background. The successful implementation of data estimation system depends on the forecast model, as the model constitutes an essential component. The model helps fill the data gaps as it gets integrated forward from previous observations to future time, subject to the limitations of the model that would affect the prediction. As I said, where there are no observations like over oceans or remote places, your model acts to fill up the data gap, observation gaps. Right? Then cycling is another part of the data estimation system. Now, what is this cycling? The model forecast system is repeated in cycles, like 3-hourly cycle or 6-hourly cycle or 1-hourly cycle for convective data estimation systems. So as to carry forward the variable information from the past to the present, according to the model consistency. In this process of cycling, the model forecast and the data estimation procedure march together forward. Right? So we say there have got 4 cycles in a day because we assimilate the data every 6 hours. 00, 06, 12, and 18 etc. Back to 00. So 4 cycles of data estimation. Right? Cycling is called cycling. But operational center model and are continuously running away. Right? For months and months, years and years, it continues to run unless there is a serious problem somewhere. Right? So, we will call for the computer background. Right? What do we do? Of course, in this big centers, we have got standardized systems also for that. We have got redundancy. There are your systems on top. Suppose something went wrong in the computer, then what? Operational things cannot stop. Can it stop? Right? Because they are called the essential services of the government to the public. isn't it? So you cannot afford to do that. Like your forecast, for example, is used every day for the aviation sector. All the flights all around the world needs your forecast, right, to fly. And if you say that now my computer went down, I can't give you the forecast, then how will they fly? Of course they will fly, but then there will be always a danger, a risk involved, right? And of course, if your computer breaks down, then you cannot give a forecast, then other models are available, from other operation centers like SCMW and etc. Those things are available. I mean, that is in today's context. In modern days, those things are possible, but in earlier days, those things were not possible, right? So that problem was there. Only that you cannot afford to have a system, a single system. You have to have a redundancy, right? Always, even at NCRW, we used to have a redundancy. If suppose something goes wrong, then immediately the standby computer will take over, right? The system. And also, computer needs a rest anyway, right? You have got a maintenance. You have to do the maintenance of the computer. Like sometimes, you have got weekly maintenance nowadays is not done. Weekly maintenance is done only for the data, etc. But monthly maintenance still done to ensure that everything is functioning correctly in the computer. Or sometimes you have got the annual maintenance, which is more serious. Annual maintenance takes 2 to 3 days time to check everything, every part of the computer that is perfectly going okay. Massive, because the computer are massive systems, right? You might have seen, I don't know if anybody has seen the supercomputer at Pune IITM or at NCRW. Any one of you?
No, sir.
No.
No, sir. No, sir.
No, yeah. If you get a chance to see the supercomputer at IITM Pune, you will see a big hall, massive hall, and that hall is full of big racks or boxes. And you might have seen in the photo, or supercomputer, big like pet box. Full hall, big boxes. And at least once a year, so far, then what we do with the forecast? You cannot stop the forecast. That will go on. Already, which keeps on pouring. I mean, maybe your office has a annual maintenance, but the rest of the world is not having the annual maintenance of the same thing, right? And they will keep sending you the data. And where will you store the data? Can you store somewhere, right? So always in the operation center, they have got a standby system to take the redundancy. So I just waited to tell you all these things, what happens in reality. So cycling, I was talking about the cycling. So in that context, because suppose starting for the research purpose, research mode. If you are doing research, you are not running the model. Suppose you are running one case of the problem cycle. Let us say wood profiling, right? Or the case whatever cycle we are running. So what they will do that the cycle in system, and they will run the model from that day. And even if they are doing the data simulation, they will only start assimilating data from that point onwards till the cyclone hits the land and it fades away. But when your first time, starting time, you are integrating the model or doing a simulation experiment, simulation. So somewhere you have to start with zero, right? And that is called the cold start. Cold start. Because you are starting from say time t equal to 0. So that at that cold start, there is no cycle. But for the next cycle, after 6 hours, if you are again assimilating data for your research purpose, then you can cycle, right? You forecast from the previous time, starting from 0, 0, or time t equal to 0 to the next time step, you have got a forecast. So use the forecast as the first guess. At time t equal to 0, you don't have a forecast from the previous time because you are starting at time t equal to 0. Most of the research are done in the past mode. When you already have in any case, no, you cannot. How long back you will go for making a cycling hot start experiment? Maybe you will go back 1 day or 2 days before that, or 3 days before that. You cannot go indefinitely. But even if you go 3 days before that, what about before day -3? When you are starting day -3, at some point you have no forecast, because that is your starting point. Only after you have started integrating the model from that time, then you have got a forecast for the next cycle. So always you have a starting point somewhere where there is no first guess available. So that is the cold start. Whereas once you have started, then you start cycling the forecast from the past time to the next time step. So that is called the cycling. Okay, cycling the model forecast. The cycling process may sometimes retain errors due to bad observations. We already discussed about that. For several cycles before they are removed or good data is ingested. You have a class at 12:30? Yeah or no? Yes or no?
Yes, sir. Elective.
Yes,
They
sir.
have.
Elective. So some of you have class, some of you do not have. Right? Is that so?
Yes, sir.
So then we'll have to come back to 12:30 anyway. Next time. So let me see how far we can go today. There were only 2 or 3 minutes left. For the same reason, the model retains any of the high resolution model generated spurious small scale features, and they do not get corrected if the observations do not have sufficient resolution to correct them. And it's like this is related to your resolving the subgrid scale processes, right? Suppose suddenly something occurred, something happened, at the grid point closest to you, which was not reported in the observation, right? Some mesoscale phenomena, some subgrid scale process occurred, which could not be captured by the observation, which could not be resolved by your model at that given resolution, because you cannot change your resolution every time, step, right? You fix your resolution and then run the model. So those things which could not be resolved properly will introduce error in your first case forecast for the next cycle, right? And that will carry forward till again it is corrected. When the subgrid scale process like small scale AD, suddenly some turbulence has come up. So that turbulence will die out after some time automatically. And then your normal model will start resolving whatever the normal processes are there after that. Right? So it gets automatically corrected. I will finish up to cycling and then I will stop today. The cycling process also helps with the spin-up problem. You have heard of the spin-up problem, which arises when a new forecast is initiated. The cycling process is also essential to preserve balances of the variables from the physical parameterizations. Okay. No, well, I mean, everything is interrelated and is interdependent. It creates the balance. Cycling process creates the balance, which are sometimes caused because of the imbalances from the physical parameters and skills, which are not perfect themselves. So I'll stop today before we start discussing data. It's already 12:31. Is it okay?
Yes.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, good.
Yes, sir.
Now you have to go to the classes. So today I stop here. I stop the invitation now. Tomorrow we shall continue. Tomorrow is Thursday, so tomorrow we'll have only the practical class, but we'll see. We have time to complete the syllabus before 15th. So I stop recording also. Yeah. So today Adira has got the recording.